अनन्तरम् अस्माकं मुख्य अतिथिवर्यान् प्रार्थये अद्यतनं कार्यक्रमम् अधिकृत्य स्ववचोभिः अस्मान् उद्बोधयन्तु इति श्री एस् गुरुमूर्ति महोदयः.
Namaskaram to all. There is an advantage in talking as the last speaker, and there is also a disadvantage. The advantage is that you know what others have spoken, so that you have more to talk. But to be the last speaker is also difficult because you are testing the patience of the audience. So, with this dichotomy, I would like to present my views as someone who is more fit to be sitting there than here. But it happens in Kali Yuga. In Srimad Bhagavatam, the Kali Yuga's features are explained, in which one verse says that a popular person will be regarded as an intellectual in Kali Yuga. So that is why probably I have been put there. Otherwise, I have no qualification to be sitting there. And many of you should be listening because many of you are competent to be sitting here. So I am talking to an audience which is far more qualified and far more noble and far more interested and committed and learned Sanskrit than I could ever attempt. In my view, because I bring to bear on the subject of Sanskrit an idea of a national mission and also a global mission. Sanskrit is not just a language, because I have no understanding of Sanskrit as a language because I am still a struggling student. But I know of Sanskrit. I know of Sanskrit because I have tried to know about the country. Without knowing India, without knowing the great heritage of India, you can never understand Sanskrit. It's not just a language. This is my understanding of Sanskrit, which I want to share with you. I have also studied the strategic idea of how to promote Sanskrit. I have been part of those efforts to promote Sanskrit. So it is with that credential I am trying to share my thoughts with you. All of you may have known that Ambedkar suggested Sanskrit as the national language of India. In fact, he was responsible for making Sanskrit idioms as the basis for interpretation of the constitution insofar as the religious rights are concerned. Most people do not know about it. For example, the word sampradaya, which is a Sanskrit word, has been wrongly interpreted by the Supreme Court as equal to denomination, which is a Christian formulation. Now only that Sanskrit words used in the constitution should be interpreted on the etymological meaning of those words in Sanskrit is being explored. We are now over 70 years from the date on which the constitution came into being. So why I am saying this is, as Ambedkar wanted Sanskrit to be the national language, the Sanskrit Commission 1957 declared Sanskrit as a dead language. You can understand from where Sanskrit, the effort to revive Sanskrit, the effort to discover India through probably the most ancient language with the wisdom that has been bestowed by thousands of years of research by great men and women began. So we must understand that Sanskrit, if you look at only as a language or as something to be taught, we will never be able to make Sanskrit. It will survive, but we don't want a Sanskrit which survives. We want a Sanskrit which will enlighten the world, enlighten us. All of you know it. But how to do it is more important. So, teaching Sanskrit is important. Teaching about Sanskrit is as important, or perhaps more important. That is what I want to tell you. We are living in a utilitarian world. We must understand that. Even the idea of value-based education, which was very much drummed up in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, stopped with the 90s. After globalization came, money became so important. Pleasures and pursuit of comfort became so important. Because I have seen how the whole world shifted, because I was involved in the process of strategizing for Indian business as to how to challenge globalization, stand up to globalization. So, of course, I don't want to get into it more, because globalization has collapsed within 25 years of globalization being discovered and propagated. And that's a different thing. I'm not getting into it, but it has permanently changed the course of human mind as to what to pursue in life. Knowledge is no more important unless it is going to deliver something to you. So it is in this situation we have got to see how all languages are in problem. Don't think Sanskrit is in problem. According to a study, of course, the most reliable study, in the last 50 years, almost 50% of the global languages have died. 3,000 out of 7,000 languages have died. They are no more there. In India, from 1961 till now, 220 languages have died. And nearly 150 languages are expected to die in the next 50 years. So you must understand, living languages, spoken languages, transactional languages are dying. Sanskrit is not a spoken language. If Sanskrit is still there, you must understand there is something more to it than being a mere language. There is some divinity attached to it. And that's what I want to explain. So we are living in a utilitarian world. How to strategize, position, and present Sanskrit. You can present Sanskrit through Kalidasa, but you can also present Sanskrit through Bhaskaracharya. There are methods and methods. Who is going to be the brand ambassador for Sanskrit? That's more important than the knowledge of Sanskrit itself. Because unless you create interest in Sanskrit, Sanskrit is not going to grow. But if you are not going to create interest about Sanskrit, nobody is going to take interest in Sanskrit in a utilitarian world. In fact, I was talking to about 15 years back, I was talking to one of the technology ministers of the government of India. And he was always trivializing me, Guru, you are always going back to the past. You are a Neanderthal economist. So the world is moving forward, you are moving back. This challenge I have always faced in the committee of the economists, who I happen to challenge in the course of my understanding about global economy and Indian economy from civilizational perspective, about which I have done some study. So I asked him only one question. Have you seen the Delhi pillar, iron pillar? Have you read about it? No metallurgist in the world has been able to decipher the metallurgical composition, how it was made. And in fact, one scientist even said India must have had some extraterrestrial knowledge and connection for that to be made here. So when I asked him, he said, Guru, we have lost that knowledge. I said, we have not lost that knowledge. We have destroyed that knowledge. So, if you present Sanskrit through the Delhi pillar, that will be far more telling than even through Kalidasa. I am not underestimating Kalidasa, please understand that. In a utilitarian world, we have got to create interest in the study of Sanskrit. We have to present Sanskrit as a source of knowledge, not as merely a source of spiritual wisdom. See, spiritual wisdom is an element of Sanskrit. It is not the totality of Sanskrit. It can give you abundance of spiritual wisdom, but it can also give you equal amount of abundant worldly knowledge, scientific knowledge. In fact, I was talking to Krishnamurti Shastri the other day. We are always trivialized the country, it is the British who made you. Otherwise, you are not even one nation. In fact, I don't know how many of you had occasion to study Mahatma Gandhi's Hind Swaraj. All of us must study that. That's probably the most powerful critique of Western civilization at the time when Western civilization was seen to be irresistible in the world. Today it is being very heavily questioned even in the West. But at that time, Mahatma Gandhi was the pseudo-reader questioning the editor. He was doubling as the reader and the editor. And one of the questions the reader asks, how do you call yourself one nation? After all this, your railways and post offices welded you into a nation. And you are talking about freedom for the country. It is the Britisher, we made you into one nation. Of course, Mahatma Gandhi gave a beautiful explanation for that. He said, the very fact that we traveled throughout the length and breadth of India with the Ganga at home made us into one in the manner in which two Englishmen are never. This is how you beautifully put it. But I did some research about it. If there is any nation in the world whose geography is defined, it is Bharat. 2500 years back, its territories were defined, its neighbors were defined, its purpose was defined in all Puranas. And it says the people who are living in this geography, their object of life is to attain moksha. It is a karma bhumi. When not now. It is not some literature unrelated to the soil and the people. And this nation, with this kind of continuity, was taught and we believed and we propagated as having been never a nation. So I was talking to Krishnamurti Shastri the other day. I told him that the word Rashtra is there in Vedas. Rashtra it is not territory. What is Rashtra? Then he sent me a write-up. He said, I have never studied. He was one of the greatest exponents of, one of the greatest exponents of Vedas. He said, I am stunned. The verses in Rig Veda say, where there is a conflict between the Rashtra and the Jana, the interest of Rashtra must prevail over the Jana. Can you believe this? Thousands of years back, we have the concept of a nation. There can be conflict between the people habitating the nation and the interest of a nation which is independent of even the collective of the people. So we need sociologists to study. We need political scientists to study Vedas. We need a multidisciplinary approach to Vedas. I would like all of you to go, and as soon as you go home, please Google Indian discoveries in Wikipedia. I am amazed in the last 4 years, the list of Indian scientific discoveries which have been listed with authenticity, whether it is in maths or in metallurgy or in science or in surgery. In fact, I always saw a list in Lost Discoveries. Dick Teresi has brought out how Indian discoveries were stolen and branded as others. But now the list is so long. It is so proven. Which is the key to this knowledge? We are celebrating Sanskrit as a great language. No, it is a language of not only wisdom, it is a language of technology, it is a language of mathematics. Now nobody says that Pythagorean theorem is that of Pythagoras. It's over. It's ours. It's in Rig Veda. So, we have got to present Sanskrit from a multi-dimensional perspective. In maths, I will just tell you an example. You know Ramanujan. There is a beautiful experience which Hardy, who was his friend, quotes. You know, Hardy comes in a car and the number of that car is 1729. So Hardy says it's a boring number, dull number. Ramanujan says you are wrong. This is the smallest number expressible as the sums of two cubes in two different ways. He says 13 cube plus 1 cube and 10 cube plus 9 cube makes it 1729. Instant. When Hardy was stunned, he said, an equation for me has no meaning unless it expresses a thought of God. Mathematics is God, number is God, equation is God. This is not what we teach. We teach mathematics and Srinivasan Ramanujan's history as independent of the source of his knowledge. So I think we need to strategize a presentation for Sanskrit, and it requires a collective effort. I think Sanskrit college and institutions like this should think of a model by which how to create in a utilitarian world which is seeking benefits out of their learning, material benefits, dollars, rupees, positions, power out of their learning. It is no more learning for enlightenment, it's gone. There are exceptions. We are not going to rely on exceptions. Exceptions are not going to save Sanskrit or promote it or to brand India. You must understand, Sanskrit can be the instrument to brand India because this is the only language in which the literature as well as the phonetics have survived. For example, Hebrew language was revived. 2000 years, they were all gone, strewn in 108 countries in the world, and no one knew what was the Hebrew language. They reconstructed the Hebrew language, but they could not reconstruct the phonetics of the language. In Sanskrit, you see this continuity. Vedas, which were recited 5,000 years back with the phonetic, is being recited today. This kind of continuity is denied to every civilization in the world, in spite of the fact we were the most devastated civilization for the last 1,000 years. There is something in it. We must attach ourselves to that core, that is the country. Unless you have patriotism, Sanskrit will not survive. You must love India. This is not a piece of land. Whether it is Aurobindo, whether it is Vivekananda, whether it is anybody, they call it Punya Bhumi, Karma Bhumi, Moksha Bhumi. Unless you root yourself to the country, that is where this strength comes from. That is what we destroyed in the last 70 years. So we must reorient our mind, re-energize ourselves. So don't look at Sanskrit as merely a language, a culmination of letters. Of course, there are many work is happening. You must have heard about the Madras University Catalogus Catalogorum project, which is listing millions of Sanskrit, unrevealed Sanskrit manuscripts available all over the world. In fact, Aniruddhas, who came and met me about 10 years back, because the project got stopped and we had to arrange for some funds to promote the project. 42 volumes. and 100,000 manuscripts only on astronomy, unopened. See the amount of knowledge it is waiting to reveal to you. This is what you should say. And I will give you a telling example which I came in contact in the course of my professional consultation to a group of scientists who are working on the medicinal property of methi, mendayam. Because now diabetic is the biggest and the most devastating disease in India. So, two IIT people from Chennai who are working in Hindustan Liver, they decided that this Sanskrit is being taught and learned only by linguists. Scientists must also study that. They began studying Ayurveda, then Sanskrit, and they began zeroing in on the research on methi. And they began doing rat test. Ordinary methi was not working. And somebody said, no, there is a Beel tribe doctor in Rajasthan who treats people with methi, you go and learn. So then they went there. And they found, he said, you have to go, you can't get these ordinary methis are good for stomach, but if you want methi which will treat the diabetic, you must go into the forest and pluck it. So they went and plucked that methi and began doing rat test. It had 50-60% result, but it wasn't producing no result on human beings. Then they went and asked him. He said, when did you pluck it? He said, no, you have to pluck it only after the Paurnamasya ends and Pratama begins. That's precisely what is stated in the literature that they had studied. And they had devised, and by molecular biological experiment, they brought out the same same formulation which will be there in the methi that is plugged after the Paurnamasya, and that project is being funded by Tata Group, and that may come out any time. It is because technocrats began studying Sanskrit and Ayurveda. So we must bring to bear multidisciplinary impact. Only a scientist can understand what Bhaskaracharya meant. I cannot do it. With all your interest in Sanskrit, you cannot unravel that mystery. So my pleading is that we should constitute some kind of a multidisciplinary group. Give them all this. Now so much evidence is available that if we create a small group of people from sociology to politics to philosophy to science to mathematics, then we can create a huge website as to how Sanskrit is not just a language of wisdom and spirituality and beauty and traditions and whatnot. This is something which will deliver to you today what you need. And this is far more important than merely promoting Sanskrit. Of course, we are all involved in it because it is the language, identity, thought, values without which India can't last. So my request is that we should do more, and if there is anything in this direction in which all of you are willing to involve me in, I will definitely do it. Thank you very much.
धन्यवादाः महोदय.